What if your film photos could look like a still from a movie? This is the Hasselblad X-Pan, just kidding. That camera is way too expensive. This camera, however, is much more affordable. This is the Minolta P, an automatic point-and-shoot camera with a 24mm f4.5 lens and a dedicated aspect ratio that's close to the Ultra Panavision 7E of 2.76:1 that will make you wet your pants with how cinematic your photos can be. Uh-oh. In the 90s, cameras designed specifically for panoramic photography grew in popularity. These included swing lens cameras like the Noblex and Horizon cameras, where the lens swings as the exposure is taken, and fixed lens cameras, like the now sought-after Hasselblad X-Pan and Fujifilm TX1, which uses a lens with a wider image circle than normal. Both of these essentially expose a wider area of the film negative, thus creating a panoramic photo. But these cameras are also a little bit, well, you get the expensive picture. That's a pun. Panoramic photography. Enter the Minolta Ps, also known as the Riva Panorama or Freedom Vista, a camera that was released in 1991 that sort of cheats the panoramic mode by placing black bars behind the lens so only part of the image is exposed on the film, producing around a 13.3 by 36mm exposure instead of the standard 24 by 36. Now, a lot of cameras at that time had this panoramic feature, but the Minolta P is one of the few cameras with the panoramic masks permanently fixed. So you had no choice but to take cinematic photos. Now, before we go into what I liked and what I didn't like about this camera, let me give you some details on how to operate it. To start, turning it on is simple enough. All you have to do is slide the lens cover open and you're good to go. You will need to get your hands on a C123A battery. I had to order mine online because it isn't readily available here where I live. But once that's loaded, your battery should be able to last you 25 rolls of film with 24 exposures each. The Minolta P uses infrared autofocus with a range of 0.9 meters to infinity. You can half press the shutter button to hold focus at the center of the focus frame, and a green lamp will light up on the upper right of the viewfinder, confirming focus and also that the flash is charged and ready to go when needed. You can then choose to reframe your composition while half pressing the shutter button and then press it all the way down to expose your shot. By the way, the flash is automatic, so it'll go off without notice, just like a ninja with a camera flash. If you want to force a flash not to fire in scenes that are a little too dark, simply hold down the flash cancel button before half pressing, reframing, and taking your shot. I have noticed that when you take too long to reframe and set up your shot while holding the flash cancel button, the flash will still fire. So be extra careful when you're being discreet or when you're trying to prevent your camera from blinding a bunch of unsuspecting animals at the zoo and possibly traumatizing them. This camera has programmed exposure, setting the shutter speed from 1/200th of a second to 1/4 of a second as needed, and the aperture from f4.5 to f22. The camera can also recognize DX coding, which is always good, but in a weird way, which may not be so good. For films rated slower than 400 and films without any DX coding, the camera will rate the film speed at 100. And for films rated 400 or faster, the camera will still rate the film at 400. So for example, if you're using Kodak Gold 200, which is the film I used when I first used this camera, the camera will think it's an ISO 100 speed film. So you're essentially overexposing your images. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing for film photography, as color negative film does have a high latitude, especially in the highlights, so you should be okay, but that's just something to consider when picking your film speed. The camera also has a self-timer that will release the shutter after 10 seconds. Pressing it also doubles as your shutter release, meaning the camera will focus on the focus frame at the center of the viewfinder, so make sure you have it set to where your subject is. And I don't know if it's just my copy, but I have to press a little bit deeper on this button just for the timer to activate. Yeah, just a little bit of an extra nudge to make it work. And with that said, finally, this camera has a motorized automatic film transport, making it quite easy to load film. Simply open the back cover and slide the film in the film chamber. Pull the leader part of the film until it reaches the orange mark on the take-up drum on the other side. Make sure the film is lying flat on the camera and close the back cover. That's it. The camera will automatically advance the film and the counter should move to 1. If it still reads 0, something went wrong, you can open the back cover and try again. And once you've reached your last image, the camera will automatically rewind the film. All you have to do is wait for the motor to stop running and make sure the counter reads 0. You can open the back cover, get your film, and send it to the lab for processing. If for any reason you would want to rewind your film before you've finished up your roll, why would you unless you're a madman? You can press this button at the bottom of the camera. So let's finally get into what I loved about this camera. The first is definitely the price. The Minolta P is the closest to a panoramic camera that you can get, like the X-Pan, that won't cost you a house, like the X-Pan. I was able to get a near mint copy at about $90 or 5,000 pesos, which is like 1% of the price of the X-Pan or TX1, if we're going off average eBay prices. So knowing that, this camera is really a great bargain. Another thing I really enjoyed is the 24mm lens because I do love the focal length, and the wide angle is also great for not just taking horizontal panoramic photos, but also vertical panoramic photos. And stacking them up is perfect for creating interesting visual layouts. The 2.76:1 panoramic aspect ratio is also perfect for me because I just love shooting in a cinematic way, especially since I grew up watching a lot of films, and so that's why I started this channel in the first place. And I guess you could say that I view the world in a sort of cinematic aspect ratio, so I definitely felt at ease when I was composing my shots with this camera. And just as a point and shoot, this camera is pretty fun to use. It's simple, the viewfinder is great, it's very pocketable, so you can essentially bring it around anywhere with you, except maybe the beach because this isn't waterproof, maybe space, I don't know. But enough of that, let's talk about the things that I didn't love so much. Right off the bat, it definitely has to be the limited ISO capabilities. I wish that since the camera can technically detect DX code, that it would just be able to use the rated film speed of whatever film you're using instead of just defaulting to either 100 or 400. I also would have liked the flash cancel button to be like a toggle instead, so you could be sure that it wouldn't fire. Again, I've had a few instances where I had pressed the flash cancel button and the flash still fired. And the elephant in the room, one of the pros of this camera is also, I guess, one of the cons. You are essentially limited to the panoramic mode. You are losing resolution, or pixels, and technically wasting the film. But of course, as I've said before, limitation really fosters creativity, allowing you to think outside the box, or in this case, inside a 2.76:1 aspect ratio box. Looking through the viewfinder and seeing close to what you're actually going to get in the final image, and knowing that you can't really recrop it in post, kind of forces you to get your composition right the first time, or at least close to it. Maybe crop a little here, crop a little there. That's perfect. So to end, I've really enjoyed using this camera. I found the aspect ratio perfect for just showing how big something is or how small your subject is in comparison to its surroundings. This is definitely great for landscapes, for architecture, and for shooting interesting scenes and portraits as well. Before we end, I'd like to give a quick shout out and thank you to Mysterious Panorama and Bagel's Acoustic Donut for helping me with my query on Reddit regarding how the swing lens cameras work. They helped me out with my diagram and even showed me pictures of their cameras, so that was really helpful and I learned a lot. So thank you guys. So if you're looking to scratch that X-Pan itch at an affordable price, and if you see the world in a cinematic aspect ratio like I do most of the time, then this might be the camera to try. But that's it for me today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I recently tried Sennheiser 800T on my Olympus XA3 and I kind of want to try that on this camera just to see how it would fare. But go check out that video if you haven't yet, and also check out my video on the Olympus XA3, a great pocket-sized 35mm film camera from the 90s with a lot of great features. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.